Good afternoon, Facebook world. It's Randy Bird, and I'm bringing you Tuesday Titans. And today we have a Titan in the house. We have one of my favorite guys. I mean, when he sent me his bio and all this stuff, I was like, who in the frick did this guy steal this stuff from? Because it can't be this guy. But he's really a Titan, not only in my mind, but in the world's eye, in my opinion. And I'll introduce him in just a second. Before that, though, it never fails when we go live. By the way, if you're live, can you comment below so I can see that we're live, and I'll start seeing the comments and know that we're good. It says live, but you know what I'm doing. So it never fails. Right before you go live, I'm in this total tranquil, quiet. I live on a cul-de-sac on an acre, totally quiet. My dog has an out-of-body experience about 3 minutes ago because UPS delivered cigars. And I thought she was going to kill somebody, and there was people breaking in the house. So luckily that's over with, and we're all good now. I see Deanna likes it, so thank you. I see people coming on. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce you to not only somebody I respect and another, hey, Deanna, how you doing? Nice to see you too. But, Kip is not only somebody I respect as a coach. He's a coach with the Tom Ferry organization. And a damn good coach on top of that. But I really respect his demeanor, his attitude towards life is unbelievable. And when you hear his story, you'll see why it even has more merit. But with that, number one, welcome to the show, Kip. Thank you for being here.
Randy, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. So let me read this. I have a little bio on you, and it's a little long, but I was trying to cut it out. I was like, this is impossible to cut. How do you cut out? He's the class president, graduate with honors from Florida Law School. You can't do that. So I'm not going to cut out anything. All right. So with that, Kip Roth, and you'll find out in a minute, was born fingerless, right? With severely deformed arms and hands. He underwent years of surgery to build hands and give him a chance at a normal life. And I know this, you've probably heard this 1,000 times, maybe easy, maybe hard, but I want the audience to know what kind of man you are today, all right? Kip attended and skied for the University of Colorado and was a 4-time national disabled ski champion, a member of the U.S. Paralympic team, and 2-time silver medalist of the Paralympics and World Disabled Ski Championships. Before the show, he commented, and we chuckled pretty good, that I said, I have a world-class athlete on the show tomorrow. And he's like, I'm freaking 55 or whatever years old, dude. I'm not a world-class athlete. But listen, he was badass, right? The older we get, the better we were, right?
Hey, Bird, it was last century, man.
Dude, that's my story, dude. The older I get, the better I was. But so Kip served, like I said, the university class president after graduating with honors at University of Florida College of Law. He litigated with one of the largest firms in the country, served as labor counsel and director of alternative dispute resolution for Fortune 20 company, Fortune 20, not 500, right? Later started his own law firm, developing a successful civil rights practice, which we're going to talk about today. Kip's represented over 56 million disabled Americans and Fortune 500 companies to change discriminatory practices. Kip received numerous awards for his advocacy, drafted legislation, and also was the Florida ADA, American Disabilities Act, notice program, ensuring that every Floridian business received notice of their obligations under the American Disabilities Act, the ADA. So basically kind of that compliance officer piece, right? Today, Kip is a business coach, as I mentioned, owns his own real estate franchise, and is recognized as an industry expert and a national keynote speaker. He's appeared on Good Morning America and has numerous other television and radio credits. With that, I'd like to have everybody give me a big round of applause for Kip Roth. Thank you so much for being on the show today, my friend.
My pleasure, Randy. Hey, listen, before I get in trouble, I didn't graduate law school with honors. I graduated undergrad with honors. See, in law school, I discovered golf, dude, and it was freaking over. It was over, man. I mean, I did graduate. I did make the dean's list, but I didn't get out of there with honors.
Hey, I'm all about boosting you up, and if I could fabricate shit, we're going to fabricate shit.
Well, let's fabricate some shit, man.
It's my show.
All right.
How good a golfer are you? Because I need to know if we're hanging up right now.
Okay. Well, I played Saturday, second time I played this year, and I had an 86.
Okay, we're done. I'm going to end the show now. He's better than I am. Thank you for coming, everybody. Actually, I might be able to beat you on my good day, but I haven't been golfing with my shoulder lately, and I'm jonesing. But
hang on, let me see if I understand this. You brought me on the show to bitch about your arms.
That's not true, actually. That's a good segment. That's a good segment. So, obviously, show everybody your arms. Okay. And so tell me the story with that, Kip. You're really a gracious gentleman, and you obviously knew that that's going to come up. So we wanted to talk about it in the beginning so people understand your journey and your story. And I'll be honest, when I've heard you speak, and I missed you live at the last coaches training, but I watched a video of it, and it teared me up, your motivational just fortitude. And, with that, tell me a little bit about your story and tell the viewers.
Sure. I was born with phocomelia, and it's a really rare genetic disorder. I mean, I probably had a better shot at getting hit by a meteor, honestly. It extremely rare. I was born without fingers and thumbs and elbows. And these fingers that I have here,
thumbs or elbows.
Yeah. And these fingers I have here are surgically manufactured. It was a flat fused flipper that had a bone structure inside of it. So they cut it apart. Then they took skin grafts from all over my body to give me skin on top of it. And then they took one of the fingers off and moved it up to give me an opposable thumb.
No kidding.
Yeah. I mean, I tell you what, the amazing part about the whole story was where I was born in North Dakota, the doctors, their advice was give him an immediate bilateral amputation, a brand new shiny set of hooks, and institutionalize him. That would be his highest. That was the advice. No. And my parents, thank God my parents just said, no, that ain't happening. And they threw me in a car and they took me to the Mayo Clinic, which, still is one of the preeminent clinics in the world. Absolutely. And they found a surgeon who did this, man. And, you say beautiful. And people look at me and they say, my God, you're all jacked up. They have no idea how grateful I am for, what I have, because this is nothing but a miracle, period.
It's all relative, isn't it? Gratitude is relative. And I can't remember the guy's name. I met him personally, that has no arms, no legs.
Nick Wojcik.
Thank you very much, Nick. His spirit, it shines. You almost, it's to me, it's strange, and this may sound strange, but I want to be like him. When you look at him, I want to be like him, not only in physical appearance, but in soul, right? And it really is it's just all in the gratitude, I believe, my friend. So, thank you so much for being on the show today. And it's funny, you asked me, what are we going to talk about? What's this about? And for me, it's really just about you. It's about the guest, and allowing the viewers to get a, glimpse into your world. And I truly believe that you are a titan, not only in your industry, but as a human being, as an individual. And that's why you simply easily qualify for the Tuesday Titan label in the show. I have a couple questions that we'll go through and just kind of create some flow, if you will. But it's really about you. And I really encourage the guests. We've got some viewers on watching. We've been fortunate enough to, have pretty good viewership, a couple thousand views on the last couple of shows. And again, for me, I don't care if one person watches. If that person gets something out of this, it's a win for me. And my vision, like I told you before we started, is Tom Bilyeu's show, Impact Theory, is something that's profoundly affected and contributed to me. And what I love is the diversity. Every time he has a show, you're watching something completely different. You're talking to somebody that's how to take care of their gut, to the universe, to meditation, to quantum physics. It's just really amazing, and sometimes totally contradictory theories within the show or two, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I really love about it. But with that said, I'm going to just ask you a couple questions to get the flow going. Feel free to have this go wherever you want it to go. And again, if any guest is on and they want to answer questions, just ask questions either of Kip or myself, please do.
Yeah, please, that'd be fine.
Number one, what are one to couple books that most influenced you personally or professionally?
Personally, I've read Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life, 7 times.
7 times.
Yeah, and I'm going to read it probably 3 or 4 more. I became a psychology nut, an absolute bonkers psychology nut about 3-4 years ago. I mean, I can't get enough of it. I've read, 150 psychology books in 3 years, and I take notes on them, and I've got hundreds of pages of notes and whatnot. I've looked into getting a PhD in psychology. It's my passion.
Yeah.
And that book and his book, Maps of Meaning, both have had a profound impact on me. Brain Rules by Medina is a good one that really moved the needle for me. I mean, The One Thing and Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect.
Yeah.
And, those books on a how to act on a day-to-day basis. But the deeper stuff I've got, I like the psychology books just a lot.
Interesting. And you named a couple of my favorites, The One Thing with Gary Keller, right? Correct?
Yes.
One, yeah. What a marvelous book. And to this day, I still reference The One Thing, either whether it's the title or to remember to stay singularly focused into a task.
I have my clients read it.
Yeah, good for you. How many clients do you currently have?
Just over 30.
Okay, that's a full-time deal, man. That's a full-time deal. So let me ask you a question. And we had some fun with this, and I wanted to save it for the show. But tell me, what happened in the elevator?
Oh man. Okay. Have you ever looked up the definition? People make an assumption. They make the assumption that the biggest challenge a person with a disability, and I hate that word. We'll get to that in a minute, but that's the word that I'm assigned. Taxonomy demands a label. So people believe that the biggest challenge that a person with a disability faces is the physical challenge. Mm. And speaking strictly for myself, that wasn't the biggest challenge. I solved this by about 15. My North Star, my purpose in life, everything I ever wanted was complete physical independence. And I achieved that by, the age of 15. It probably took me, I was thinking about it, 6 years to learn how to button my shirt.
Right.
It took me 4 years or so to figure out, to develop the dexterity to tie my shoes and, hold a normal toothbrush. So by the time I was 15, I was 100% completely physically independent except like 5 things. I can't throw a spiral with a football. I can't climb a rope without knots. I can't snap my fucking fingers. I really want to. Okay. And 2 other things that nobody cares. Oh, I can't button my top button. Okay. So
can't reach it physically.
I'm sorry?
You can't reach it physically?
Yeah, but I can reach everywhere else on my body that you can, except the back of my head and right here. All right. So when I graduated, high school and went to college, I'm thinking, man, I got it made. I beat this thing, right?
Right.
And I ran face first into a wall. And the wall was this just appalling strain that Western culture imposes on persons who look different.
Yeah.
And I wasn't ready for it because I got made fun of all through high school and whatnot and bullied and all that good stuff. But when I became an adult, I honestly believed that once they could see what I could do and that I could do everything they could do, it wouldn't be an issue.
Right.
And that just didn't happen. And it took me by surprise. And so it manifests itself in, to this day. I mean, 3 times a year, a complete stranger comes up to me and says, if I looked like you, I'd kill myself.
No way.
Yeah. I've had people, at least a couple times a year, 3 last year, people screamed at my appearance.
You're kidding.
No, they see me and I understand that I look a little.
I don't understand at all. But
well, let me just put it this way. I mean, my shape is a bit of an interruption of the ordinary visual pattern. I
get that, and I get scoffs and maybe quiet things, but the language you're talking about doesn't seem like it's human. It shouldn't happen in human nature at all.
Well, for most people it doesn't, but it's part of the drill. Okay. And the other part of the drill, the other thing that caught me unaware was, discrimination. I had many employers flat out tell me straight to my face, I can't hire somebody who looks like you. As a matter of fact, I once applied for a job at a temporary agency. And the lady on the phone said, "You're awesome. You're hired. Bring a friend." And I went down there and we took an intelligence test. And of course I kicked, his dog.
You kicked his ass. Yeah.
I kicked his ass, right? And I beat my friend. They hired him and she pulled me in and said, "Man, I'm sorry. I can't hire you. And I said, why? And she said, well, I can't send somebody who looks like you to a client. And
look like you, or you can't perform the task.
Well, that's what I said. I said, well, why can't you send me to a client? She says, well, what if you have to pick up a box? And I said, I'll pick up the fucking box.
Wow.
And they hired my friend, but didn't hire me. And then, I couldn't get a date. And so I'm 21 years old, and the only job I could get was as a bike messenger. And that's because, in downtown Miami, that was the only job I could get because it was a blind hire, Randy. It was a newspaper ad that said, show up here and fill out the application, and then they call you and you go back and get all your gear out of a mailbox and you become a bike messenger. And so that's what I did. And, I'm living on top of a restaurant in Miami Beach. I got nothing. I'm in school and I'm drinking too much because I'm in a lot of pain. It was extremely, it was a bad time because I couldn't quite figure out what went wrong between, all the work I put into to figure this out and the rejection I was getting. And, I'm looking at 21 years old. This went on for years, and at 21, I'm starting to consider that what if this is like a failed life? What if this is it? What if I can't get real work? Not, there's nothing wrong with being a bike messenger. It just wasn't for me. And what if I want kids. I want to get married. I want a wife. I don't want to live alone the rest of my life. And, I had a cab driver say, you were a shitty person in a previous life, which is why you're like that now. I mean, it's just a parade of indignities on a daily, weekly basis. And I'm thinking to myself, is this worth it? And I was, flat out suicidal. I'm riding my bike 10 miles to work, riding all day on my bike, making my deliveries, riding 10 miles home, living in, this room above a restaurant and just doing whatever I can to, justify the next day. And then it happened. I went to work and I had a delivery and I went into the building and I got on the elevator and I put my back to the back of the car, right? And I'm digging through my bag, I push my button, I'm digging through my bag to get the delivery and my receipt book. And this little hand comes through the doors that are about to close. And this woman gets on. And this isn't pain. This is the joy part. I have a difficult time talking about this because it still had such an impact on my life even today that she gets on the elevator and she hits her button and she stands sideways. So she's looking at me and mammals can tell when they're being stared at. And I've had it my whole life. I know when somebody's staring at me and she's staring at me and I'm looking down at my book and I look up at her and usually they look away. And she didn't. She just kept staring and she smiled and she said, I bet you lead an interesting life. And she was gone. And I went up and made my delivery and I'm turning this over in my head and I'm thinking, what the hell did that mean? What does that even mean, right? And I got back on the elevator to go down, and it hit me about halfway down. And I got off the elevator, made it out to my bike, and just lost it because I realized what she taught me. And, you know Tony Robbins, he says change can happen in an instant. Yeah. And it happened for me in an instant in a 15-second elevator ride. And here's what she taught me. She taught me that if the circumstances of your life won't change, you must. And I'm not growing new arms. And there's 7 billion of you guys, a certain percentage of them who don't like the way I look and they've got no problem with telling me that. Mm-hmm. Nothing of my circumstances were going to change. And so I had to. And which she took moments in my life as interesting. And the pain left. and it never came back. And you know, what she taught me basically was my life didn't suck, is that I sucked at life. Because I wasn't using the best tool I had. And the best tool you have is, like Viktor Frankl says, you know, you define your reality. You choose what things mean to you. And I just heard this one like a few weeks ago. I was reading something, and it was, if you come home and you pour a glass of wine and you sit alone in a chair, whether that is complete freedom or unbearable loneliness is entirely up to you. And before the elevator, I defined everything as painful. And then after the elevator, and I never went back, man. Everything, you know, it's interesting. And it totally changed my perspective from whatever it was before to one of intense curiosity. And wrung all the emotion out of all the events, of all the stuff that I put up with today. I mean, you know, I have a completely different perspective on it just simply because of that changing the definition I assigned to my circumstances. So that was the woman in the elevator, and without question, man, she saved my life, you know?
Wow. I knew you'd make me cry today. Thanks a lot.
You had it coming, brother. You had it coming after calling me an elite athlete or extreme athlete.
Right. You know, it's so powerful. I really appreciate you sharing that. And to me, the takeaway is just that one little statement by the right person changed your path. And
instantly.
You know, you talked about suicide, and it's near and dear to my heart. I might not be able to get it out. I'll do my best. But my brother killed himself. My ex-wife killed herself. And before that, I never even – you got me in this state. Before that, I never once contemplated, thought of it, even understood. I could not understand where somebody would get in that place. And then after that happened, especially my brother, I felt it. I felt like how somebody can get in that space. And that's why I've dedicated my life to motivation. And people don't know this about me. And that's why I love you being on the show today. And I don't give a shit. I don't mind crying. There's only, you know, 2 people on the thing anyway, so nobody's going to see this, right? Thousands will see it. I don't care, right? And that's the beauty in life is I was able to see that. And frankly, that was the journey why I became a coach. I told my coach this. I said, you know, he's like, what motivates you? You know, it's about your clients. And I go, I love giving back and I love doing all that, but I'm doing it for selfish reasons. When I'm forced to stay in motivation, when I'm forced to stay in that place, it's my benefit, right? Now I'm laser focused and I don't know. I haven't been diagnosed and, you know, I'm not an educated guy like you are, high school education and self-taught, which a lot of people, you know, I fake my way through that. But for me, it's just about always learning and always being learning based. And then when I watched Tom Ferry and he talked about life by design, man, he just reached in, grabbed my lungs and pulled them out. And so that's been my journey. And I say this because your story today has touched my heart. And
thank you.
I can understand where you're coming from in that, you know, and we have lots of people saying inspiring and powerful and all this. And I really appreciate all you guys being on the show and understanding what's going on here, because I think we can grow from it. I know we can grow from it.
Well, Randy, we have to grow from it. All right. And that's one of the things that's driving that's what motivates me to get my message out, because, you know, I lived in Utah for 10 years and this statistic came out just a couple of years ago. Suicide's the number one cause of death for children under 17 in the state of Utah now. Okay, we've had a 4-fold increase in suicide since 1990 in this country, and it's guys like you and guys like me, white and over 50, who are doing it. And you know, my father, when, you know, every day in high school, I had a kid, and I remember we're friends today on Facebook. He doesn't remember he did it, but for, you know, a few months there, every day he greeted me in high school with, you know, Kip, you know, why haven't you killed yourself? You know, look at you. No girl's ever going to want you. Nobody's ever going to hire you. You're never going to have anything. Dude, end it. Just end it.
Wow.
And, you know, and I'd come in the next day. You didn't do it. What's going on? You know, that was daily for a while. Okay. And when I brought that home to my dad, the only tool he told me that the only tool he knew of, and I love him to death, but his toolbox was limited because he'd never been there before. Right. All he could say was, be strong. Okay. And no doubt that's an effective tool. Okay. But you do that long enough. And by the time I was 21, I had 7-8 years of that shit under my belt.
Right.
It's not, I don't believe, it's not the best tool, anywhere near the best tool. It's not the only tool. And what does it even mean to like a 10-year-old kid who's being bullied? Be strong. What does that mean? Does it mean be strong enough to shut people out, to shut down your emotions, to disconnect, to ignore your pain, to withdraw inside? What does it mean? Right? So number one, it's not a particularly good tool in and of itself. And it leads to a second problem. You end up living your life with your teeth grit and your fists clenched. And life becomes a joyless battle of endurance. And man, I didn't sign up for that. I want joy. All I ever wanted was a wife, a couple of kids, a pickup truck, and a couple of Labradors. That's what I want. And I'm 21 years old, and I'm thinking, man, I won't have that. Right. Just because I look different.
Right.
And then I get on the elevator, I bet you lead an interesting life, and boom, everything changed in an instant, And you said something that you like to learn, and that was the beautiful part about the word interesting that she taught me. Because like I said before, just the light switch for curiosity turned on.
Yeah.
So then when people gave me crap, it wasn't about me. It was about you. Why would you say that? Who are you? Where are you coming from? What's your socioeconomic class? What's your intelligence level? What's your empathy level? I had curiosity about them.
Yeah, curiosity is such a beautiful word. I mean, when you look at it that way, and because everybody's judgmental. If somebody says they're not judgmental, I call bullshit, right? And it just depends on your level of judgmental and what you feel is acceptable or okay. And I think that's where the biggest beauty for me is when I can slow my ADD brain down enough to witness the moments and then engage with people with curiosity.
Exactly.
And the most impactful places in my life that I can remember. And some of those, I wish I had the toolbox I had today when I was 20, for Christ's sakes. Oh my God, right?
Exactly, yeah.
We have from the training and collaboration and bright minds that we surround ourselves with now in the coaching platform and the clients and people we hang around with, and show me who your 5 friends are and I'll show you who you are type thing. I take that shit to heart. I take that shit to heart when I think about who I'm investing my time with and who I'm investing my energy with. And I really love the angle that you're looking at from with curiosity, and how just little things in life, seemingly little at the time, transformative in terms of the rest of our life.
So let me just share one example of how that curiosity really paid off.
Yeah.
It was about a year after I met the woman in the elevator. And, I think about her all the time, and, what I wouldn't do to find that lady. She'd probably say, I don't know who the hell you are or what you're talking about. But, but in any
love on her. She'd like, stalker.
Yeah. But I was still a bicycle messenger, and I was on my way home after work one night, and I stopped at a 7-Eleven to get a soda. And it was the old school 7-Elevens. They had the curb out front, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting on the curb, and I got my bike, and it's a nice bike. I was racing bikes at the time, and I fell in love with bike racing because of being a bicycle messenger. It helped me train for skiing. So I had a really nice bike, and I had a Walkman, and I'm sitting there with my soda in my hand, and this woman pulls into the parking lot in this aircraft carrier-sized Buick because it's 1989 or whatever. And she gets out, and I didn't even make eye contact with her. And she walks across in front of me and goes into the store. And a few minutes later, she obviously came out, and I'm sitting there shaking the ice in the bottom of my soda, listening to my tunes. And I'm looking down, and I see these shoes in front of me. And I looked up just as she leaned over, and she dropped her change into my cup. And it's funny. The funny thing is, I can't tell that story without my older brother Mark crying real tears. He's laughing so hard. Right? Oh, dude, he gives me so much shit about that.
Oh my
so,
God.
so in any event, what happened was I stood up, I dug her, 75 cents out of my cup, and I gave it back to her, and I said, I got a job, I'm good to go. But on the way home, on the ride home, it hit me. If society, and what I learned was if society can judge me on the basis of my appearance as useless or an object of pity, with having no information about who I am or what I can do,
right,
then if I give one more moment's notice or concern to their opinion of me, I'm a dead man. Right?
Bingo.
Yeah. So that's part of the beauty of my shape, because it gives you these lessons in such an intense and unavoidable. You get to learn really, the most important lessons of life in the amplified.
I think that's a great explanation. And somebody, if they just join in, they may not get this, but do you now look at your arms as a blessing and having gratitude around that? So where it's brought you spiritually, emotionally, and, life is, do you feel that way, or is it still something that crosses your mind a little sideways once in a while?
I wouldn't know I was different except for you guys.
Oh,
I mean, isn't that the bottom line?
That's actually, wow. That's deep, because I did, as somebody without that physical disability, if you will.
Oh, wait, hang on, Randy. Don't sell yourself short, dude. You're a freaking mess.
I know, I'm a hot mess. Hey, I'm not wearing my brace today, so nobody knows that I'm broken.
I appreciate
my doctor.
I appreciate you not bitching about it. Let me answer your question. We don't learn except from the new, the novel, the different.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the only way we learn. When we drive to work the same way every day, we do it 90% unconsciously. We're all programmed, running the same program. So we don't learn anything. We don't have an opportunity to learn. This is an opportunity to learn. Okay. So if your North Star, if your highest value, if your transcendent goal in your life is to experience as much of this life as possible, and that is mine. Okay. This is a vehicle.
Yeah. Simply
by virtue of the fact that, the ordinary social contract of how people speak to each other and treat each other, it doesn't exist. So I enjoy an unimaginably broad expanse of human experience that I otherwise would not have enjoyed, an opportunity to learn from this. And after the woman in the elevator, when none of that stuff hurt anymore, I mean, literally, it's not my problem. Okay. After the woman in the elevator, that's when it became a blessing for me, because I now had a tool. Wow. Let me tell you something. I wouldn't have met my wife except for this.
Right.
Okay. I wouldn't be an entrepreneur except for this. All right. Because it would have been somebody else who just got a job and was, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I enjoy being an entrepreneur. I wouldn't have my kids if it wasn't for this. Okay, so a blessing, yeah. I've walked a journey that is endlessly fascinating, incredibly interesting, a lot of fun, and has provided me so much opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my answer to that, man.
I love it, brother. And it's a good segment to the next, in my opinion, is discrimination. How do you feel about discrimination as a whole? And I know you've dedicated, sounds like a good portion of your life towards that cause or that piece. Would you tell us about that?
Yeah, I view it differently, and I have to be really careful when I talk about this because.
Why is that? Politically correct, or
well, there
is. Understand it wrong, or what are you thinking?
I just have a different perspective on it. As a preliminary matter, I like to assume ignorance before I leap to malevolence. There's an industry out there, a victimhood industry, that every single time somebody offends another human being, it's automatically malicious.
I gotcha.
Well, that's bullshit.
You're right. The pendulum has swung the wrong direction like it always does. It goes too far, and it's for good reason. But in my opinion, we take that and we just overemphasize, or we overcorrect, rather than creating equality in the center. But
it damages the movement. I mean, I've been a civil rights lawyer, litigating federal court cases nationally for over over 20 years involved in that arena, and
federal court.
That type of activity doesn't help the cause. Okay, but my take on discrimination is this: we are this at the top of the food chain for the very simple reason that we are capable of discerning danger better than any other mammal. Right? I mean, we're vertically oriented, bipedal, difference detecting machines. That's what these eyes are for.
Right. So we're made to protect ourselves.
Exactly. So the woman at McDonald's a few months ago, she turns around, sees me, and just screams. Okay, is that discrimination? No, it's not. It's innate, and we can't wipe that clean because MLK had a dream, right? That's not going away. That's innate. It's hardwired. It's millions of years old. It'll stretch millions of years in the future. So you've got to come to grips with the difference between innate or ignorance-based discrimination versus maliciousness. And I've experienced both. I sure as hell can tell the difference. I've litigated the difference. Right. But like I said before, I'll tell you this really quick story. It was an on-campus interview with a partner at a law firm in Naples, Florida. I was going to University of Florida College of Law at the time, and I had this on-campus interview, and it had been scheduled for 90 days, dude, right? So I walk to the career services building and walk in, and there's this tiny little office with, a chair on that side of the desk and a chair on this side of the desk, and I'm going to get interviewed. And so I walk in, and I'm standing in the door, and I approach, and I stick my hand out to shake the guy's hand, and he freaking freaks. He loses his shit.
Really?
Okay. He looks at me, and his jaw opens, his eyes go big, and he immediately looks down at his desk, and he sweeps up his papers. And he stuffs them in his briefcase. Well, he's yammering something about must have been a misunderstanding. I got a plane to catch. Sorry about this. We'll reschedule. And he closes his briefcase and he's walking out of the room. And as he passes me, I'm standing in the door. And as he passes me, he says, "You're not what we were expecting." And so everybody says, "My God, that's terrible." And it's really funny because the guy who was running the career services office, a kid named Jared, a really good guy, he saw the whole thing go down. And he says, "What the hell just happened?" And I said, "The guy freaked. He can't handle my arms." And Jared said, "Well, we'll immediately ban them from campus." I said, "The hell you will. There's 200 other classmates in there who need a job, right?" But my point is this. I got the next job, okay? And I met my wife, all right? So, discrimination in many, many regards is – I ended up in Atlanta instead of Naples, and I met my wife, and I met a woman who was strong enough and loved me enough to give me children when, we had, probably can't tell, but I got some unresolved genetic issues. Having kids wasn't easy, man.
Oh, really?
Oh, shit. We had multiple miscarriages, and my wife never batted an eye. She said, "I want to give you children." And, that's the woman for me. I mean, that's Paula.
Paula. Love Paul already.
Yeah, she's a very, very special woman. I love her very, very much. And I wouldn't have her except for that asshole at that interview. So I have a hard time being upset about discrimination. But one other thing about it is the other reason I have to be careful talking about it is there's a segment of the disability rights community that says if somebody offers you help, that's inappropriate. Okay, because they assume that we can't do things. And so I flew out to coaches training 3 months ago, right? And I show up at the kiosk at American Airlines, and there's big, long lines everywhere. And this guy for American Airlines is eyeing me, and he comes over and said, "Can I help you, sir?" And I said, "No, I'm good to go. I can do this." And
right.
I dropped my credit card, right?
Right.
So he picks it up, and he steps in front of me, and he boop, 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 does the whole thing for me while I'm standing there and hands me my boarding pass. I get on the plane. The lady sitting next to me asked me if I want my vent on. The lady on this side asked me if I need help with my seatbelt.
Right.
Okay. Now, according to a lot of people, I'm supposed to get pissed off about that.
Interesting.
All right. But I'll just tell you that that's the very best of human nature that I get to see. I mean, people dive to get doors for me, Randy. They dive to open doors for me, complete strangers, and I get to see that. All right. Because of my circumstance. And I'm sorry if you can't enjoy that, if you can't enjoy that, you're doing it.
You get to see the good.
Unbelievable amounts of good.
Yeah, and unbelievable amounts.
Yeah, they so far outweigh the bad. And if you can't enjoy that, man, you're doing it wrong.
I love that, dude. I love that. You are really this even took more of a turn than I thought. I'm just really grateful to have you on the call today and on the show.
Oh, thank you, Randy.
You're a legend among men. Getting towards the end, I want to ask you 2 more questions. Tell me about the Paralympics. Give me, I built you up as a super athlete, so give me a little bit about that. I know it was probably 5 to 7 years ago, but what did you specialize in? What'd you do? What was going on with that?
Yeah, it was 88.
I wasn't born yet, so if you could tell me about it.
Am I allowed to shoot you a bird on this? I can't shoot a bird. Okay.
Go ahead, man.
So anyway, skiing for me was just all athletics. I mean, I golfed, soccer, tennis, bike racing. It was an escape,
right?
All right, because it provided me an opportunity to compete with people where this didn't matter. If I was going to kick your ass, I was going to kick your ass, or the other way around. So I just went nuts on skiing. Skied in high school, skied at University of Colorado, a club team, and I'm skiing bumps one day at Mary Jane Mountain in Winter Park, Colorado, and some crazy old man hanging out of the chairlift says, "You stop right there. Wait for me at the bottom." And it turned out to be the head coach of the U.S. Disabled Ski Team.
No kidding.
Yeah, and he invited me out to nationals in '84, and it was too late for me to qualify. I didn't go to sectionals or regionals. I didn't qualify. But he let me 4-run the courses, and I posted, the fastest time in the men's downhill. So I started competing in national championships. '87, I got named to the team. In '88, went to Innsbruck, Austria, and had a really good week.
So amazing.
It was fun, man. But what's interesting about that is I never hung up my hardware, and my kids asked me about that. And I said it had nothing to do with the hardware or the podium. It had everything to do with the journey, And I mean, that changed my life. That was incredibly, it gave me a tremendous amount of confidence.
Right. Absolutely. So I just thought of another real quick question. So when you meet people from your position of being in a place of a disabled, physical appearance, but not disabled in the mind, right?
Or the body.
Or the body. I mean, do you appreciate when people not only treat you the same, I guess, but they almost joke with you more because to open it up to make it where, I don't know if I'm saying this right.
No, I know where you're going, brother. I know.
Like I know you, right? I want to come up and give you a hug and go, dude, high five. Oh, sorry, I want to fuck with you a little bit because it brings the realness of my love and care for you rather than, going, oh, I want to be careful not to offend or anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but if you ever do that to me, I'll punch you in the fucking throat.
You know what's happening next time I see you now.
You got that right, man. I got a friend in Florida who shakes my hand with his 2 fingers and his thumb. It's one of the funniest.
See, that's what I'm talking about right there. You're only 4 foot tall, right? So I think.
So to answer your question, see, this is the biggest bullshit detector imaginable.
Oh.
Okay. That's the thing about discrimination. Discrimination is information. If I can smell if you got a problem with me, and I'm okay with that because it's your problem.
Right.
Right. And so I don't have to waste my time on you. Okay. Because if you have a problem with this and you can't quite sort it out up here and make sense of it and get comfortable, you're probably not somebody that I want to spend time around anyway.
Right.
What are you going to give to me?
Right.
Okay. So yeah, people who can handle this, give me a firm handshake. I met Jesse Jackson one time, and the guy grabbed me here and shook my arm like he's shaking a hook out of a trout, And I'm suddenly I don't know what to do with my hands. So I went in to get another handshake, and his bodyguard says, "That's enough." I'm like, "You're damn right, it's enough. That guy's an idiot."
I love it, dude. I love it. Well, listen, brother, it's been an absolute pleasure, and it leads me to my last question. I'm gonna tweak a little bit for you because you've got unbelievable career accomplishments. Usually, my question is, what career accomplishment makes you most proud? But with you, your career accomplishments are like unbelievable. I'm like, bowing down to the things you've accomplished and the intellect and just your journey. So I'm gonna change it a little bit, but what life accomplishment makes you the most proud?
My kids.
How many kids?
2. I got a 17-year-old boy and a 19-year-old girl. And, when we found out that we had such a small percentage chance of having healthy children and the other children would be so incompatible with life that they wouldn't make it 12 weeks. And then, the miscarriage was over and over again. So by the time my daughter arrived, my first child, I was a freaking mess. I can't imagine what my wife was going through. But she was born, and all I was doing was counting.
Right, fingers and toes.
Yeah, and I didn't even learn her gender until like the 5-day follow-up visit. I didn't fucking care. I learned her name like a week after.
Blue, I forgot to check.
Well, I'll tell you, I learned her name like 10 days after that because I really didn't care, And I called my dad, and it's the first and last time I ever heard the guy cry. It's my kids. The fact that I was so lonely and just like a man on the moon at 21 years old before I got on that elevator to having everything I ever wanted, and most particularly my family. It's just so overwhelming.
Amazing, dude. I've had some great guests on the show, but honestly, you touched my heart today. You made me cry, which you promised you wouldn't do. You didn't.
Oh, I'm going to do it again, brother.
Promise. Dude, I'm telling you, I'm gonna throat punch you next time I see you for that comment.
Hey,
we're gonna scrap, bitch. We're
a felony, dude. That's a felony.
We're gonna scrap. But anyway, I really do admire you much more now that I've learned and heard your story. And this is just a little piece of, like I told you before the show, why I like doing this show. It really highlights the titans of not only the industry, but just the life. We're all struggling with something to get by and to make this make sense. And especially with tragedy, it happens even more. And to have your just drive and will and fortitude just is so impressive as a man, not as a disabled American, but as a man. And I really appreciate you for that, man. I love you. Thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure. And, thank you.
I'm sure everybody's enjoyed it, and the future people watching the show will enjoy it as well. But thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and have a blessed day. Thank you for sharing your story today, brother.
My pleasure, Randy. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I wish you the best.
My pleasure. Have a great day, Kip. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Tuesday Titans. I'll see you next time.
Bye.